Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Single AF podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how to be single when you're just getting out of a long-term relationship. We're also going to talk about how to know when it's time to define the relationship and sort of what to do if you're consistently finding yourself as a friend or as hanging out with somebody. Finally, I provide an update about the guy that ghosted me mid-conversation, and I can promise you that the what the fuck moment is definitely worth it. First, I want to go ahead and thank all of you who have been listening and watching me on YouTube so far. I'm starting to get a little bit of traction on this podcast series, so I'm very excited for that. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yay! First up, let's talk about how to learn to be single when you have been in a long-term relationship and only really know what it's like to be in a relationship. So I did receive a question from one of the people that watches this. Hello, by the way. She has essentially been in a long-term relationship for about 6 years now, since she was a teenager, so being in a relationship and being part of a couple is sort of all that she finds that she knows and understands. That's what feels natural to her. Her relationship recently ended, and she kind of feels like she got the rug pulled out from under her in the sense that she doesn't really necessarily know how to be single now. It's been a couple months, and she's finding herself a little bit lost and a little bit directionless. I completely understand this. I completely relate to this. As some of you already know, I got into a relationship when I was 16 years old. I was together with him for 7 years, and that was, starting from the time that I was 16. So when I got out of that relationship at the age of 23, when I got my divorce, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to date. I had never really done it before. The way that our relationship had started out had been online. There was never really a courting process. We didn't really date too much. In other words, I completely relate to this, and I know exactly what you're going through. My biggest advice is honestly to not do it the way that I did, where I was trying to replace the validation and replace the things that I was missing from not having that relationship with random people. I didn't bother to learn how to be a single person. I didn't bother to learn how to be a single adult in today's world. And it took me a long time to actually bother to mourn the process of losing my relationship. It took me probably about a year and 3 months, give or take, before I actually admitted that I felt some sense of loss over my relationship because, as a lot of you know, it wasn't a particularly healthy relationship, so walking away was definitely the best thing that I could have done for myself. It was by far the best choice that I could have made. But that being said, you can still mourn the loss of it. You can still permit yourself to feel sad because you are losing a relationship. You are losing a major part of your life. Regardless of whether or not that loss is, necessarily a bad thing, it still hurts. You're allowed to admit that it hurts. Don't be like I was. Don't be stubborn about it. Let yourself go through the grieving process. Open yourself up to that. And then really learn to put together your own life and find, projects and things that you find exciting, things that you enjoy, and that don't require another person to enjoy them. Our second conversation for the day is surrounding having a relationship with somebody which is more like a non-relationship. And I think that most of us who are dating in the year 2016 know exactly what it's like to be seeing somebody, to be hanging out with somebody constantly, but never actually going on a date. And if you do ever go out on a date, if you are ever seen in public, if you're ever introduced, it's, oh, this is my friend. And it's like, I thought that we'd been sleeping together for like 3 months now, and you told me all of your hopes and dreams. I don't know what you do with your friends, but I don't really do that with mine. Figure out where your boundary is set. Figure out how much of that you are willing to put up with. And for some people, you may be completely happy to not be technically committed to somebody forever. It may be completely acceptable for you to still see yourself as a single person, but still have that person to rely on. That is completely okay as long as it's okay with you, and as long as it's okay with another person, and as long as it's coming from a healthy place. You know, if you're just afraid of commitment, if you don't find yourself really liking them, then you're getting into more of like a back burner situation, and that's not necessarily a healthy thing. But if this is something that is mutually good for both of you, by all means, let it last forever if you want to. But at some point, there is, you know, it does become necessary to define the boundaries of the relationship, even if you're not defining it as a relationship. Figure out if you are exclusive or if you're allowed to date other people. And if you do choose to date other people, or especially if they choose to date other people, and then you also start, if there is any form of jealousy or possessiveness, anything like that, any of the unhealthy behaviors, you know, that start to deviate away from healthy, happy relationship territory into, you know, the darker places of human connection, just walk away and feel free to cut all ties, because technically you don't have any ties. That's the wonderful part of that situation, I guess. That's the advantage there. So figure out where your boundary is, express that to them, and then as soon as they cross that boundary, as soon as, you know, it's pushed further than it really should, just get out. That's all you got to do. Finally, I do have an update. If you have been listening to this for a while, you will remember my first episode where I talked about ghosting, and I also told the story about the guy that ghosted me mid-conversation. We were texting back and forth for like an hour, and then I asked him for a very specific detail as to when and where I should meet him, and then he never responded again, despite liking all of my status updates on Facebook. Strange person. It gets better. On Friday night, I went to a protest for, you know, the American president and all that other stuff. We're not going to get into politics, but there's a crowd of probably 500 people or so. Like, it's this really good turnout. And guess what? Of all the people in this crowd, to find me was the guy that ghosted me mid-conversation. He said one thing to me. He said, "Wow, this is crazy, huh?" I said, "Yep." And then he proceeded to stand next to me silently for 10 minutes before I finally waited. I escaped this situation by waiting until his back was turned and then like running in the opposite direction. Like, wait until you're not paying attention, wait until someone's really distracting with the megaphone, and then just haul balls as far as you can. That's how I deal with situations like that. I just run away. I'm so completely confused by this person. Oh, and I forgot another detail too. On Facebook, he announced that he's getting engaged shortly. Dude, if anybody can, like, provide the psychological analysis on this situation, feel more than welcome to in the comment section down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button if you want to get more of these episodes. I put out a new episode of the Single AF podcast every single Monday. Also, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel in general, because I make comedy videos. I talk about life advice and gay stuff, and it's just a gay old time. As always, I hope that a unicorn poops on your forehead and that your week is off to a wonderful start. Let's make it a better week than last week, shall we?